Hey, good morning. I'm gonna come to you here. It's really early in the morning here. I can't sleep, and everybody in the house is asleep. So I just want to touch here a little bit on something that I'm not able to find on anywhere on the internet. Uh, this here is a trigger assembly for a Marlin Model 60. These trigger assemblies, they're predominantly known for cracking around the back housing, as you can see back here. Never mind this, I'll go over this here in a minute. But most of these trigger housings, they're prone for cracking around here. Um, when these trigger housings was designed, Marlin during this time, during the late 70s and the early 80s, and especially between the 80s and the 90s, Marlin was experimenting a lot with the this plastic mess. Um, I've had um, two firearms from Marlin that had this plastic stuff, and this stuff doesn't hold up over time. You may get about maybe 10 years, and then this stuff is going, something's going to wind up cracking here. Uh, since Marlin has been bought out by Remington, uh, here we are in 2024. Marlin was bought out by Remington, and then later on, sometime I think around 2020, Ruger had bought out Marlin. And so what we have now, we've got a lot of these thousands and thousands of these Model 60s that people have, and they're very good 22 rifles. Um, you know, mainly the Ruger 1022 and some of the other models has taken over. But since Marlin is no longer in existence, they stopped making these Model 60s. So what happens is that there are some trigger assemblies that I think a company called DIP products. They make this housing here. It's all aluminum that you can buy, and it's about a little over $100. I could go that route of getting this trigger assembly here new, but then again, like I said, this gun here used to belong to my dad, and so I would like to try to keep it as original as possible if you can. Um, and so these trigger houses, like I said, is all plastic. The trigger assembly here is some kind of pot die cast, if you will. Very simple inner workings here. Two pins that hold the trigger. You have a spring that comes here, but then you got back here the safety. But what I've tried to done today, and I wanted to do this video before I got started, but I got impatient. But went ahead and stopped and just show you what we got from here. Now, I don't know if you can tell. I'm sorry for this lighting. Right. All right. So we can see here that this crack, there's a crack that's right here. Now this crack here goes all the way from this hole here. It goes down and then it goes, I don't know if you can see it or not, but then it goes back here, and then it is almost coming down here. Now some people that I've noticed that they're trying to sell these trigger assemblies, this thing here is already cracked or broken off. What happens is that this thing here sits on your gun like this, and then over time, but the temperature changes with this plastic, and you got this bolt here, and with that plastic expanding and contract back and forth, because most time these guns, they sit in the closet, they don't get used a lot, and so what happens is the temperature contracts and expands, contracts and expands, and then all of a sudden it just creates a crack. And if you don't catch it in time, what happens is this whole thing will just eventually crack all the way around. But when I got the gun sat in my safe for about a little over a year, and I decided the other night to get out and take a look at it and pull it apart, and this thing was nasty. So when I got here, I got looking, I was like, oh man, this thing was cracked. And so, like I said, this thing here was cracked. It cracked, goes down here, goes around, and they're pretty much all the same. And then all of a sudden, the crack had came all the way across the base, went down the side, and then came down here, and it was getting ready to make its way over here and to break completely off. So there's a few ways to go here. Now, I'm a big fan of JB Weld. I could tell you some stories, maybe not now, but I could tell you some stories where JB Weld has helped me in a lot of spaces. Doing some research on the internet, I found out that the Gorilla Super Glue and JB Weld Super Glue is some pretty good glue, if you will. But also, I'm a big fan of the JB Weld. Now, this is the JB Weld here. Is what I have used. It's just a regular JB Weld. It's not the extra strength that I can tell, but it's just a generic JB Weld for 2 parts. Okay, so what I've done now, this is going to take some time. I won't recommend rushing this because this is going to be something that is going to be, hopefully I can get another 20 years out of this thing. But what I had done, I took my Dremel, and with a really, really fine bit, I don't think I have that here. Let's see if I can show it to you here. All right, with this Dremel, as we see here, this Dremel bit, get it in the camera here. Like I say, this thing here, it's got like these little abrasions. It's not a cutting tip. It's just got some abrasions glued on it. You can find this stuff really anywhere: Walmart, Amazon, Lowe's, Home Depot, that stuff. This is just a Dremel tool. I found that if you don't turn the Dremel tool up on the high setting, at a low setting, you can control as it's biting into the plastic. High speed, you kind of can overcorrect, if you will, and really get down into the plastic and have a big boo-boo. That's what you don't want. You don't want to have a boo-boo. Okay. So what I did earlier today, this I'm not going to really mess with this much because I had put this on here about 5 hours ago and it's still curing. But what I did, my low setting, is that, let's see if I can get this thing in the camera here. What I did here, I followed that crack, and I didn't go all the way down. I went about halfway, about right in here to the material. Because like I said, this thing hadn't broke off all the way. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing this thing the whole way, because if yours is almost getting ready to break off, it's best to have that thing still connected. If not, then you're going to have to try to fasten it or fix it where it's going to be straight. It's straight now the way it came from the factory. Okay, so, and what I mean by straight, it hadn't broke off, and I've got to try to temporarily fix it to hold it straight, besides it's being all cattywampus, if you will. Okay, so what I did, came down here with the Dremel, and I just followed this thing down. I started this crack here was all the way in this screw hole, and I'm not worried about that screw hole right now because I'm going to drill that back out. But I went down in here. But before I get started, I'm jumping ahead here. Cleanness. Now, as I said, this thing here was dirty. This thing was covered with sand, dirt. This thing here, this particular Marlin is a 1986 model. So you're talking well over 30 some plus years. Okay. So 30 some plus years, I don't know if this thing had been cleaned or not by my dad or not when he was alive, but anyhow, I got it, and it is what it is. So this thing was nasty. So what I did is run a small container about that deep with warm tap water, put some Dawn dish detergent, let this thing soak in there for a few hours, pulled it out. I've got a can of the spray. Okay. Once you come down here, you want to use an old toothbrush. Now this here is a gun cleaning brush. Now this thing here, the bristles are very, I don't know if you can see in the camera, but the bristles on this thing are pretty much thick, and so but you need a toothbrush that's a little bit more finer bristles, and so get it down after you get it out of your little soaking bath that you have. Take your brush. I wouldn't recommend spraying it off yet because you want this thing to still be wet. Get down here and just scrub that crack. Get all the way down here as much as you can, and scrub that crack, and get it down here, and just get what you can, and then spray it out. Okay, so then after that, I went through. It's not exactly completely clean yet because I still got to clean it some more, but all the grime and the oil and everything is off this thing. Now you just got something. As you can see, it's kind of dirty here, but I'm not worried about that yet. So the main thing was to get all the oil so that JB Weld can have something to stick to. Now I'll tell you what I'm using when you're down here and you're trying to do this micro stuff. Now, I take it some people may not have this stuff, and some people may. If you're in a hurry to do this thing, I would recommend, whether you wear glasses or not, go down somewhere to the dollar store and then get some reading glasses. Now, reading glasses that these things here are like 375 strength. These things are like super magnified. Okay, then on top of that, then I have my little jeweler thing here. You can get that stuff off on Amazon. That thing was about $8. I bought it a couple years ago. Because when you're down here doing this stuff, you want to be making sure that you're grinding and cutting where you need to be. You don't want to be warling this thing out and you're gonna have a mess on your hands. Now this is me. This may be overkill, but this is just me. So after cleaning it, blowing it all out, get all the crud and everything out, came down here with toothpicks. When you're doing any kind of gun stuff, toothpicks are your friends. Cotton swabs that you can get these things. Okay, you get these little cleaner things here. It's best to have this stuff and not need it than need it and not have it. Okay, so then I got a bunch of Q-tips. Okay, so let's just pretend that this guitar pick here is a razor blade. My razor blades are somewhere. So what I did, I split this Q-tip. I split this toothpick all the way down, and then separate, because like I said, this toothpick is round. I want this thing to be flat. Okay. So what I did, I split it. You don't need a whole lot of material here. I just split that toothpick all the way down, cut the end off, make it square, split it, separate the toothpick. Then I had a couple other toothpicks. Had me a flat piece of paper. Okay. Something like this, maybe a piece of cardboard. Take my JB Weld, 2 little small spots about the size of my finger, because you don't need a whole lot. Mix all those two together. Okay, when I've got my other 2 toothpicks, I mix all that stuff together. You don't need, just keep spinning that toothpick around. Just keep spinning around and get all that stuff mixed up. Now, once you get all your paste, your JB Weld, now set these 2 toothpicks that I had for stirring aside. You don't need those no more. Now that one that I had just split, okay, it was very thin and it was kind of wide. That's what you need. Okay, so what I did, I came down here with my Dremel. I went down here probably no deeper than a 1/16, maybe almost an 1/8 of an inch deep. No deeper than an 1/8. Okay. Very shallow stuff. So I got down here and got past where that oil was at in that crack. Came all the way down here. The crack went down. I just followed the crack. Went all the way down here. And then I flipped this thing up here. And then I got down in here with the crack. Now, as you see right now, it don't look very well. I'm not worried about that once this thing dries. Okay. So tomorrow I'm going to come back and I'm going to do the opposite. I've got this crack here. I'm just going to follow this all the way around with this Dremel. I'm going, as you can see, come down here with this crack and maybe fold that thing back a little bit. And then I'm going to take that flat toothpick that I had split, get just a little bit on there, not a whole lot. And then what I want to do, I want to just keep patting that stuff in there. Now the reason you don't want to just use the tip, because a lot of times the tips of these the tips of these toothpicks, you need something flat that you can get in and push that material. You just don't want to spread this JB Weld and then let it ride. You want to knead and you want to work this material down in that crack. So that's why you want it to be flat and be squared off. So you just keep sit here and then packing that stuff in like you're packing grease in a barren, if you've ever done that. Keep packing that stuff, keep packing. If it builds up, then just take it here and just scrape it off. Okay, you can just scrape it off. Then I went down in the hole. These holes were clean. They had a lot of crud in them, a lot of oil. And so I just blew these things out, cleaned them. Now it's kind of hard to doing this stuff just with a toothpick or a needle or something. So what I did, I had one of my Q-tips that I had. Just pulled the end of it off. It's just like a little Q-tip ball, and then I stuck it down that hole and kind of swished it around in there and kind of fished it out and get all of that oil out. Okay, cleanliness and dryness. You don't know oil be in this thing at all. So then I took that flat Q-tip and just started smearing that stuff on there all the way around to where it is now. Okay, so when I do this tomorrow, like I said, I'm just going to follow tomorrow with my Dremel, that crack. I'm going to fill that hole in here and get this thing smooth. If I have to, the Dremel, you can get different settings. Now this thing here is a little aggressive, as you can see the thing, because if you start running this thing across here, you're gonna dig down into that plastic. A light hand is what you need. Now, one of my let's see if I can pull that up here. Get one of my other brushes to show you. Okay. All right. Now, this Dremel tool is just like a little nylon brush. This is not brass, or this is just nylon. Okay, I noticed today, even with this thing spinning, the heat from that nylon was starting to deform the plastic. So that's what I'm saying, light touch. Okay, if you have to, you could take a small file, rub that thing, take your time. This is something, you're not really looking for something that's going to be pretty looking, but you want something that's going to hold up. Okay, so get all that thing set up, get all your JB Weld on both sides. Now, one thing that I was thinking about doing is coming here, as you see the material, is to give it a little bit more support. You can come here with a very small let me see here. Okay, like so I got this Dremel set that I want. It's not really a Dremel, it's just a type of Dremel, but it's got a bunch of attachments to it. It's got different bits. Get this stuff very cheap off of Amazon. Okay, so see this drill bit right here? I thought about maybe coming here tomorrow, well, by the end of the week when the stuff really dries, and then coming through here where these holes were at, and then drill at an angle all the way through, and then maybe come about that deep in here. Okay, and then the way you feel this, and I was thinking, I couldn't sleep last night before last. This mess kept me awake thinking about this mess. I guess it's my OCD. Okay, you see these little. I got to think, well, how in the world can I feel if I did that? How can I feel that hole up? Because it'd be kind of hard with a needle or a toothpick to keep packing and get enough material to go all the way through that hole. And I got to thinking, now I've got one of these. I don't know if you can see that or not. You see that hole at the end? I'm sorry this camera's not the greatest in the world. But what I got to thinking, I'll keep all these little I've got so much of this doodad mess, you ought to see my barn. But like I said, guys, you'd be surprised. Just like save that stuff, you may need it one day and you gotta junk pile full of crap. That's me out my barn. But anyhow, okay. I can't find it. Well, let's use this one here. Okay. If you want to use one this size, see how much bigger that is, the black one, than the red one. The black one will probably be better. So what you can do, guys, is take your razor, a single edge razor blade, and come right here and just cut the very top of that straw off. Okay, don't do it all the way down, just enough, as you see, just enough. So about that far. Now, if you could probably come back here and cut it here, just cut it off lengthwise. But then, there's my other pick. But then take your razor blade and come here and cut the top of this thing off, where it's kind of like a half a moon, if you will. Okay, and the reason why you want to do that, your JB weld that you still have left, this is how you're gonna do this. I could not sleep last night trying to figure out how to do this. And so, come here with your toothpick, get your JB weld on, and fill that whole little crevice inside that thing, just like that right there. Okay, and then while you got that straw here, like that little channel, you got that thing full of the JB weld. Probably come here with a toothpick. Like I said, it's going to be cut off here if you have not a toothpick, but a paper clip, and push that, insert it all the way in that hole. Okay, and as you got it in that hole, then take your paper clip and push that JB weld all the way in and fill that hole up from the inside. As you're doing it, just keep pulling it out and then fill that whole hole up from the inside. That'd be one way to do it. Or if you didn't want to use JB weld, you could do the same procedure with super glue. Now, super glue, I got to thinking about it, but which would be best, super glue or JB weld? But the thing with super glue, it's a little bit more liquefied. Now they've got these little syringes that you can slide them over the tip of the super glue, and they got these, and these little syringes are about this long on the super glue, and these things are fish wherever you need to, and then you could squirt that stuff, that hole. That would be one way to do it. But I'm just always a big fan of this epoxy. To me, it's always held pretty well. Once you get that stuff here, once you get that stuff fixed, then you can see here, like I said, a small sandpaper. If you need to, kind of scruff it up, maybe a file, do it here. And I truly believe this thing here will last about another 10 years like that. Because like I said, it's not something that this part here is moving. It's not like a trigger that had the hammer that had broken. You're trying to epoxy and you got all that pressure pushing up against it. The only thing is that this thing here, it goes up into the stock of up into the stock, and then that bolt goes up through here. Okay, nothing is moving, so it rests. I've looked inside the stock, and it's almost resting perfect inside that stock. Like I said, the reason this thing has cracked over years is because of the temperature change. Because let's face it, most people who have these guns, they don't carry these guns out every day and shoot them. I mean, they may get out there, like majority of us, and they'll get out there and they'll shoot it and put it in a closet, and it'll stay in a closet for another 1.5 to 2 years. And so, but I truly believe that this thing here, and I'm excited about getting this thing fixed. I've gotten excited about getting this gun back up and going. It's not really, if you like guns with magazines like I do, this thing here is tube fed. But this gun here has a lot of potential. I grew up with this type of gun. This is gun number 2, model 60 that my dad had. The first one that he had gotten damaged, and I remember squirrel hunting with that thing when I was a young man. I am 57 now. So wow, and so that was right at well almost 50 years ago. And so this gun has a lot of significance, and I'd like to keep it going because it used to belong to my dad, and so yeah, I like to try to keep it as original and possible. And so I've done rambled on. It's about almost 25 minutes has passed by, and I hope this really helps because I haven't seen um, anything on the internet that is showing this. They show you how to rebuild the trigger and how to do the assembly up here at the bar, and but nobody's really focusing on that. And you have to be careful because eBay, you can find these trigger housings on eBay. There's different models, if you will. This model here, like I said, is a 1986. Now the ones in 1984 and older, it has a step come down here. It's like a step. The trigger symbol is a little different, so you have to be careful when you're looking for this thing. You want to be looking that it's flat here, just like this right here. Okay, because initially when this gun came out in the 60s, I want to say this was aluminum or some type of die cast. And over time they try to make it easier to manufacture Marlin, because I had a Marlin Camp carbine and something happened in the trigger assembly and it was plastic and it broke and I couldn't get that thing fixed. And at the time Marlin quit making the Marlin Camp carbine, and if I had that thing now, that thing would be worth a little small fortune, if you will. And but you know, Marlin just kind of was making some crappy stuff there at the end, and but you know, I mean, I've got some decent memories from Marlin, Marlin 336 lever action, and then I've got this, and then I've got a Marlin bolt action 22 Magnum, and still decent firearms. But you know, this is stuff that we have to deal with. I mean, when you buy this mess, you don't know if it's going to last or not. And so the older that I get, I just don't like throwing stuff away. And if I can get used to, because it just, you know, holding this part, pulling this trigger the way my dad used to, and you know, scaring off the cats or whatever that he used to shoot at with this thing, and I just wanted to get it back up and running, whether I use it or not. But yeah, I just hopefully this helps. And hit me up, let me know what you think, and Godspeed to everybody. Thank you for taking this time for watching this, and I truly hope this helps. Like I said, just I don't know a lot, but I just try to sit here and rack my brains and try to save as much as I can without filling up a landfill with all this crap. All right, my friend. Well, I hope this really helped out somebody here. And y'all take care, and we'll see you next time.